Alright, in today's video we're going to take you through how to take this 3D model of a keychain with someone's name on it into a 3D printing environment and then create this object. So first thing we have to do is from Inventor we're going to go ahead and export this part as a STL. So to do this we'll go up here to the top into the Environments tab, and then we're going to slide over to the 3D Print tab. We're doing it this way and not doing it from File Export because what happens is when you come out of the 3D print environment to STL, arcs and curves tend to work a whole lot better and a little smoother when we go into the 3D printing environment. So what we'll do is with this part set up in the 3D printing environment, we'll go and hit STL. What that's going to then do is it's going to save out an STL file. So we're going to go ahead and save that to a location that we have access to later. So I'm going to just go ahead and re-save this to the same place where it is now. So we'll just call it the same thing and drop that into its location. Yep, we'll go ahead and replace it just to show you the process. So now we'll exit out of the 3D printing environment, and now we're going to go into the Repetier host software. This is the software that we'll use to run the Ender 3 3D printers here. So from this particular, when we're in the Repetier host environment, we'll come over to the right side here, object placement, and I'll hit the plus symbol. Then we'll go into the files and we're going to find that STL or 3D object file that we just exported, and we'll open it up. Now when it comes in, it's going to come in, and it's going to be coming in into millimeters. Generally, all 3D printing occurs in millimeters, yet this was drawn as an inch file. So what we're going to do is we need to scale the object. So over here on the right-hand side, we're going to select Scale Object. We'll go ahead and highlight the X value, and looking at the Lock tab, making sure that this is set as a locked locked scale. We're then going to set this up at 25.4. What that's going to do is it's now going to convert the inch file to what would be the conversion for inches to millimeters. So 25.4 is the conversion. With that set up, we're now ready to go ahead and start setting up a 3D printing slicing file. So we'll go to the Slicing tab. When we're on the Slicing tab, what we can go ahead and do is start setting up the configuration and the settings for PLA filament. PLA is going to be the general filament that we work with for many of our standard prints. We'll also work with PETG as well as ABS. But for this particular startup, we're going to be running with PLA settings. In order to ensure that those settings are correct, we'll go ahead and select the configuration button. And then we're going to go over and start setting up the settings. With this set up, this would generally say default. And as this being a default, we would come down and set up that the print speed, slow is 10, and fast would be at 90. The rest of the settings we can usually keep fairly standard, working with the 150 for travel speed, first layers, outer perimeters, and the like. The selected quality settings, keeping this at 0.2 millimeters, that means each layer is the information here for the layer height is going to be set to 0.2. The first layer being slightly thicker and heavier so that it sticks to the bed. As we keep working our way through, I'm going to come out to structures, and right now the shell thickness, this is the outer shell, so right now we're set to 0.8. This is basically 2 runs around the outside shell because the nozzle is a 0.4 nozzle. With that set up, we will come back in at a later date. We'll end up setting up different features here. However, skirt and brim, this is going to be the outside skirt that will run around the part before it begins printing the part. I usually set this to 3 or 4 so that it actually begins the extrusion process and gets the filament running before it starts to print. Really, we won't have to change a whole lot anywhere else in here because it's all set as a default. And then we just hit save. After we hit save and close, we can then come back over here, making sure that the default is selected, and then we're going to go ahead and slice with the Cura engine the part that we have on our screen. So it takes a few seconds, and then we have a sliced part. Here's where we can see the layers for the print. The 4 layers or 4 outside rings here. This is the brim. And then you can see the layers coming up through this part. And you can see that there's several layers that build the base, and then several layers that are beginning to build the letters themselves. So we can work through this, and now we're ready to go ahead and start to print. If you'd like to actually see the layers individually, we can set up show single layers, and we can actually then see that the inside is a pattern. It is not a solid fill, and we can work our way up through the layers to see when it's going to work itself through. Here's also where you can see the thickness of the outer shell. This is 2 layers of the outer shell, making it 0.8. And of course, where the hole would be is also 2 layers at 0.8. So as we work our way up through, then you can start to see it's going to start working through the letters and the like. And if we go back to showing the complete code, you can see the entire part. So right now we're ready to go ahead and save this out to a part file. This is where you're going to need to use the micro SD card with a USB. And I'll go ahead and plug this into the computer. Once it sees the USB, we're able to then go ahead and there it is, the USB D drive. I can just close that, but I can hit save for print. Then I can come over and set up. This print is set up, says include start end code, that's correct. Include job finish commands, that's correct. Once I hit save, then I'm going to save this to the USB drive. So here's the USB drive. I found that, and then I'm going to put it in the folder for 3D print. Most all of these micro SD cards have a folder for 3D printing, and then we can go ahead and I'll just name it the same thing. Then I know that this is in here. Hit save. Now I'm ready to eject the USB drive, so eject the mass storage device. And now with that's out, I can go ahead and pull out the device and head over to the Ender 3 and start my print.